everybody. So I wonder what type of bread you like, and I wonder if you're having any bread with your breakfast this morning. There are lots of different types of bread, aren't there? White, brown, granary, gluten-free, soda bread. And around the world we have the French baguette, brioche, lots of different types of flatbread. In our house we have this, which Stephen makes, and it's called Grandad bread. But whatever sort of bread you eat wherever in the world you are, it's one of the main staple foods. It's a basic survival, carb-filled food. And Jesus says at the end of this passage, I am the bread of life. This is one of the I am statements we're looking at in this series. And it's an important one because it's repeated a couple of times later in John's Gospel. So what does it mean? So let's think about the passage. In verses 26 and 27 of this passage, Jesus says, the truth is, you want to be with me because I fed you, not because you saw the miraculous sign. But you shouldn't be so concerned about perishable things like food. Spend your energy seeking the eternal life that I, the Son of Man, can give you. So this is after he's fed the 5,000 out in the desert with 5 loaves and 2 fish, one of his miraculous signs. And Jesus is pointing out that he's interested in him because he gave them food, he gave them something material. They're looking at it really superficially. They haven't realised that him being able to feed 5,000 people from 5 loaves and 2 fish is a sign of who he is. It's an amazing miracle, and they've missed the point. They're looking at the material and not the spiritual. And it's only when we know who Jesus is that we can really understand what he gives us. It's only when they realise who he really is that they can understand what he gives them. So that's the material versus the spiritual. And what bread gives us is temporary satisfaction. When Stephen makes a loaf of bread, we normally cut the crust off it pretty promptly and eat it. And we're not hungry afterwards. But then the next morning, we probably have toast for breakfast because we are hungry again. And later on, we're hungry again and we have sandwiches for lunch. And the people in the desert, Israel in the desert, were fed by God every morning because they filled up on the manna that he fed them with, and they were hungry again the next day. But Jesus says he, as the bread of life, will give us permanent satisfaction, and anyone who believes in him will never go hungry. We will have eternal life. So what is eternal life? I think we concentrate often with eternal life on the eternal bits, don't we? We're looking at the future forever. It makes us think about what happens when we die. But there's 2 words, eternal life. It isn't just about what happens when we die. We can have eternal life, life in its fullness, life in God's kingdom every day, right now. And in verse 33, Jesus says that he has come from heaven to give life to the world, life in all its fullness. And they ask him to give him that bread every day. So that's a promise for now and for the future. So when we eat bread, it's to survive. But the bread of life helps us thrive. So to summarise those differences, the bread of life is about spiritual need, not about material need. It's about permanent fulfillment and not just temporary satisfaction. And it's given to us so that we can thrive and not just survive. But one thing is the same. When Stephen makes bread, If I'm working in my office, I can smell it coming up the stairs and I get hungry. And then when it pings, the machine pings, and Stephen takes the bread out of the machine and we put it on the side in the kitchen and we look at it and we stop feeling hungry. No, we don't, do we? In order to stop feeling hungry, we have to eat the bread. And in the same way, Jesus tells us this is what we need to do if we want to be satisfied, to be fulfilled by him. You need to believe. And no wonder he says that. This group that he's talking to have been following him because they've heard about his healings. They've heard about the miracles. They've seen him feed 5,000 people from 5 loaves and 2 fish. And then miraculously he arrives on the other side of the lake when they knew they hadn't seen him get into a boat. And still they ask for a sign before they believe. A sign like Moses gave them in the desert. After all that Jesus has done, they've heard about and they've seen. How many signs do they need? How many signs do we need? How many signs do you need? Jesus said, I am the bread of life. Believe. Believe.